A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is Hasan Naqvi. Today we are going to start the same topic of compilation of Hadith, and this is video number 2. So we are going to proceed. If we remember that we ended up with the video 1 with the compilation of Hadith in the life of the Holy Prophet. What happened and how Hadith was developed in the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was discussed in the previous video. Today we are going to start with video 2, and the main topic of the video 2 is what happened after the death of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So let's begin it. This is the same thing, my YouTube address and my blog address, and the same thing which I explained you in my previous video, that these 3 videos are applicable not only to CAIE, not only to Edexcel, but to all the boards which are teaching or taking exams of Islamic Studies or Islamiat, whatever the name they give. The syllabus component of CAIE is paper 2, and there is question number 2, and by the way, this question number 2 is compulsory, and the main topic is the history and importance of Hadith. That is the main topic. The subtopic is the history of the compilation of Hadith. That is topic number 1 in your syllabus. Compilation during the time of the companions. I only want to recall you, companions are the people who enjoyed the company of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They are companions, they are Sahaba Ikram. Then the second term that we use is the companions. Second one is Tabai. Tabai are the followers. Followers means whose followers? The followers of the companions. The followers of the companions, they are called Tabai. And the third term that we use is Taba Tabai. Taba Tabai. Taba Tabai are the people who were the followers of these followers. Now let me just clarify a few things, one more or two thing, that the companions enjoyed the company of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the Sahaba Ikram. Then their children, either they were not born, I'm talking about Tabi or followers, either they were not born, or if they were born, they were so small that they could not enjoy the company of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And Tabi are also the people who enjoyed the company of the companions, but they did not see the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They are Tabi. Taba Tabi is the third generation, who were the followers of the followers, means that these Taba Tabi were the followers of Tabi. They saw them, they enjoyed the company of Tabi, but they did not generally see the companions, and they did not, of course, they did not see the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ too. So these terms are to be kept in mind very clearly. This is video number 2, and I started quickly. After the death of the Prophet ﷺ, companions needed Sunnah and Hadith due to the following reasons. They are the reasons why there was a need of the Sunnah, of the Hadith, of the way of the Prophet, why it was very, very important for the Muslim community, for the Muslim state, for the Islamic state that was established by the first caliph was Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, and then Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Usman, Hazrat Ali, and the coming generations too. They were in need of Hadith, they were in need of the guidance of the Prophet, but the Prophet was not alive. So therefore, there was a need to know about the Sunnah and know about the Hadith. So these are the reasons why there was a need of Sunnah and Hadith in the coming days after the death of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Number 1, since the guidance of the Prophet had lost, they used to ask each other if the Prophet had given any guidance and instructions in the concerned matter, whatever the problem they had, their personal problem or the state problem. We are talking about the political problems later on, but even for their personal, problems, they were in need of the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. But the guidance was not there, and the knowledge was not there with them. I proceeded. I will have to explain it further when the coming lines now. They wanted to adopt Sunnah, but the knowledge of Sunnah to every companion was insufficient. Because the Prophet was not with everyone every minute, every time. Sometimes he was with one companion, or two companions, or many companions, or in some cases with thousands of companions, like we saw it in the last Hajj, when he went to Mecca and he gave his last sermon, not last sermon, rather the sermon on in Arafat, the remarkable sermon that was. So there were thousands and thousands of people, probably more than 100,000 people were there in that assembly. So obviously, and many a time he was alone. Alone means that he was only with one companion. He was with his wife, and the only witness of his sayings or his doings was his wife. So therefore, they were in need of the exchange of knowledge because they were not there with the Prophet all the time. But the problem was there, and they wanted a solution according to Quran and Sunnah. So there was a need of Hadith. Number two is the Islamic empire was expanding. Until the time of Umar's caliphate, the empire had expanded to millions of square miles. I think this point is very, very simple and clear, that soon after the Prophet's death, when Abu Bakr Siddiq had already started foreign expeditions, and then Hazrat Umar's time came when two major dynasties were fighting with Medina, or with the Islamic State, and that was the Persian dynasty and the Byzantine dynasty. And obviously the Muslims conquered them, and because of these conquests, millions and millions of people came under the domination of Islam. Whether they became Muslim or they did not, that's a separate matter, but they came under the domination of Islamic empire. So that was the problem which was taking place. Until the time of Umar's caliphate, the empire had expanded to millions of square miles. The conquered territories brought new cultures. Persia had their own culture, thousands of years old culture. Byzantine, they had their own culture. Romans had their own culture, and that was thousands of years old. So these cultures came in clash with Islam. Now the question was this: whether a certain tradition of a certain culture is applicable or allowed in Islam, or it is against Islam. And these questions came up. That was a problem. So therefore, the people and the assembly of the Muslims, the prominent Muslims, Majlis Shura, they used to sit down and they would discuss all these problems, that this problem is there. Now, obviously, they wanted a solution according to Quran and Sunnah, and Sunnah was not known as such. So therefore, there was a need to exchange the Sunnah and the Hadith. So one man would know about one Hadith or one Sunnah, and he would narrate that I was with the Prophet at that time in that company, and the Prophet said this, or the Prophet did this, or the Prophet asked us not to do it. All these things are Sunnah. So the clash of the cultures was there, and there was a need to exchange hadith, to exchange sunnah. Most of the people of conquered lands became Muslim. That was one aspect of the problem. Those who became Muslim of the conquered lands, they had their own culture, they had their own traditions, they had their own worships, they had their own way of life, and that way of life was to be seen whether it was according to Islam or it was not according to Islam. There was a clash of civilizations which required solution according to Sharia. Then there were non-Muslims. That was another aspect of the problem, that a person did not become Muslim. There was no compulsion, there was no problem as such. So because a person did not become Muslim, then there were non-Muslims living in a Muslim state, and they had their own problems, their cultural problems, and these cultural problems were to be solved by the Muslim government. So these problems were there, and there was a need that what the Prophet said, or what was the action of the Prophet in such a case, and if there was no action, whether it should be allowed in Islamic Empire, it should not be allowed. There are so many things for which the need of knowing about the Sunnah and the Hadith was very, very much there. So that was the thing. One more thing is, due to jihad, the companions spread in far off lands and places, and they also spread hadith. When the companions went to different lands and they settled down over there, they also spread hadith, and this way the hadith spread in the other parts of the world. For these reasons, the hadith spread fast among companions. So that was the exchange of hadith and sunnah among the companions, and also in the other parts of the world. During this time, the first generation who had not met the Prophet ﷺ, which is, I explained you, Tabi'i, yes, what I was saying was this, that during this time, the first generation who had not met the Prophet, which are Tabi'i, started working and collecting ahadith. They were enthusiastic. They had not seen the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and they loved the Prophet very much. They loved their elders very much. They loved Sahaba Ikram very much. And for them to collect ahadith, to collect sunnah, to work according to Islam was life. And for this reason, they were in need of more and more ahadith, more and more sunnah. So they started collecting ahadith, and because the Prophet was not alive now, and Quran was completely, of course, revealed in the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, so there was no issue or the problem that the hadith could not be collected. So they very enthusiastically, they started collecting ahadith. The collections of hadith were many. For example, collections of Abdullah bin Umar, who was a Sahabi, Abu Hurairah Razillahu Ta'ala, he was a Sahabi, Aisha Razillahu Ta'ala, she was a Sahabi, Jabir bin Abdullah was a Sahabi, Anas bin Malik was a Sahabi. They had collected their own hadith, and after the life of the Prophet ﷺ, they also wrote down something or compiled some of the ahadith. That was the work of the companions, and this work was gathered by Tabi'i, the first generation who were around these companions, and who would ask not only these companions, every companion, they would ask about the Prophet. They would ask whatever they had seen the Prophet, whatever they heard the Prophet saying something, any actions, even the very, very minute details, they would, collect them tabi. And these people, the Sahaba Karam were the people who gave them their collections and the compilations too. This work continued in the third generation, Taba Tabi, and then from the first generation was companions, the second was Tabi, the third generation were the Taba Tabi, followers of the followers. This work continued and it shifted to the coming generation, and they were also very enthusiastic about the collection of Hadith, the collection of Sunnah. So the work was expanding day by day. Large gatherings of people. It is said that in some gatherings around 40,000 people gathered and heard a companion or a tabi, and they remembered every single word, whatever they said, whatever they heard. They kept it in their mind, and that was passed on to the coming generations. Large gatherings of people used to take place in which hadiths were narrated by a companion or a tabi. Thousands of people remembered every word of hadith. It is commonly said that the hadith is not reliable. Every single hadith that was recorded by the great scholars like Imam Muslim or Imam Bukhari, they are very, very highly authentic hadiths. Even the hadiths recorded by the other four Imams, Abu Dawud and Nasai and Ibn Majah and all that, all these hadiths are very, very reliable ones. It is not so that they are fake or they are not reliable. This age was the compilation of many books. Some prominent compilers were Imam Malik, who wrote Mawta Imam Malik, and this Mawta Imam Malik is also being taught in the madrasas even today. It's a very popular book. Mawta Imam Malik was basically the book of fiqh, which is Islamic law. It was not the book of hadith, but naturally Islamic law is not complete without hadith, without sunnah. So Mawta Imam Malik is a wonderful collection of many very, very authentic hadiths. Imam Abu Hanifa, who wrote the book of Kitabul Athar, that is also being taught, and it's a very popular book. Similarly, Imam As-Sawri, Imam Yusuf, Imam Ibn Hanbal, they also wrote down their books. And though the books were about fiqh or Islamic law, but obviously in every Islamic law there is a need of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So these books, they also contained very reliable and true ahadith. This is all for today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me time. And I know they are long videos. They seem to be very boring, but believe it that if you concentrate, it's going to benefit you so much in the examination that you cannot imagine. Thank you very much. Please subscribe this channel. So nice of you.